Okay, here's the cold open. Scott,
right. Hi.
do you think...
Tristan, that's your name.
Now, a lot of podcasts out there end up with clips from episodes becoming sounds on the soon-to-be banned app TikTok.
That's true. TikTok's in its sunset years.
Maybe. I feel like it's going to end up like, it's going to get banned in America, and then it's going to be why everybody goes on vacation to Cuba, because there's no Americans there.
It's going to be banned in, here's the thing, it's going to be banned in America, and then, even though Netflix is like, you can't share passwords anymore, suddenly all the VPN companies are like, we have a new angle. Pretend you're not in America using our VPN and you can get onto TikTok.
Yeah, it's going to be the TikTok equivalent of people who go to Canada to then fly to Cuba for vacation. Mm-hmm. And then they just don't stamp your passport. It's perfect. But like the thing is, could there be a clip from It's Probably Not Aliens in our entire 70-something episode catalog that could have the potential to be a TikTok sound? Because there are podcast clips, especially those McElroys. Their clips end up becoming TikToks a lot.
I've seen a lot of good podcast clips, even from podcasts. I don't even know the name of the podcast. I just know that they are podcasts, you know? Like I don't scroll through. Emily is the only one on TikTok and she just shows me her favorite bits at the end of the day. But then she'll show me stuff that is like clearly from a podcast and I have no idea which podcasts, but they're clips on there and people like them and they're funny. So we're not coming up with a new one right now. We're like, let's dive back in to our previous episodes. What's the clip worthiest thing that we've said?
Is there ever going to be a moment where we have a clip so funny that we will get the ultimate success on TikTok, which is having somebody more attractive than us lip sync our podcast?
I think the height of it is having someone more attractive than us lip sync word for word, because typically what people do TikTok is they'll like add their own spin on it, where they'll be like, here's this clip, but in a different context, but you sort of get the general vibe of what I'm saying in this new context. Mm-hmm. Whereas some people will just take it and do it and just act it out as if it was a thing that they created. And that's how you know you've made it. I think Ruin Me History Daddy's got to be up there, right?
Yeah, that would be good. I also think that we could also consider it a success if we ever end up in a situation where somebody makes animated clips from our podcast. Those are always fun.
That is fun. We'd have to... Did you have one in mind for what's like the...
Ruin Me History Daddy would be a pretty good one.
I don't even remember how that clip went or even what episode that was in, but I think that's a pretty good one.
Are we not a quotable podcast?
Are we not a clip-worthy... All right, here's what we're going to do. From now on, every sentence that we say, I'll give us some wiggle room. Every couple of sentences that we say has to be clippable, quotable, out of context, in context. It doesn't matter. It just has to be snappy, zippy, good for the people.
Maybe the horny poem from last week.
The horny poem was pretty good. I did like hearing a robot try to turn us on. Mm-hmm. See, I'm like trying to say things that might be.
See, now we're just going to the rest of the podcast is going to be silent because we can't be zippy one-liners.
I'm trying so hard to say things that I think might people could be creative with.
Is that what the millennial pause is? Is that us just pausing because we can't think of something clever to say?
Use my words. Use them in your own voice, people. Isn't that what art is? Is TikTok not the art of our generation? Not even our generation. We're too old.
Yeah, the next generation, the kids.
The next generation. Anyway, what's this podcast about that we keep talking
about? You're listening to you're listening to a future TikTok audio clip called It's Probably Not Aliens. Which is a podcast where we talk about ancient aliens, ancient astronaut theories, pseudo-history, pseudo-archaeology, and all the like. My name's Tristan. I go into the depths of Hades and come back to the surface world once per week to tell Scott about another horrible, unspeakable thing that I have found from the realms of conspiracies and UFOs.
And I'm Scott. I know nothing.
We did it
See,
in reverse.
I felt like what we could do there. No, so I felt like what we could do there. It was good that we did it in reverse. Is because I felt like you could use that as a TikTok where it's like you're talking about, like imagine this, right? Here's a TikTok of one person being like, look at how smart I am and how much I suffered and to do all this research. And like it goes on for a little bit and then it cuts to like a different person being like, and I don't know anything. And that's Scott. It. And that's the joke. And so I feel like people could use that sound. and then put it into their own context, and then just make sure you tag. We don't have a TikTok account for Frauds That Aliens.
We don't even have video podcasts yet, let alone the idea of like being able to cut down hour-long episodes into funny clips that we could then TikTok out. I don't know why we're talking about TikTok so much, but we are here.
Yeah, it's not going to be around. It's going to be canceled. TikTok's off the market now.
I'm gonna have TikTok and you won't. That'll be the truth.
That's true. It's just me. You'll have to tell us how many people make TikToks about us.
It's true. So today, though, we are going back to Peru. Apparently, we're perusing
Peruvian
a little bit.
Ooh, can I grab my coffee really quickly?
Yeah.
You do that.
It's bean
tell
tea.
People about Peru.
Scott's making coffee, and now he has to edit me filling time while I watch him make a little coffee, a little bit of bean juice.
I heard you say my name.
Yeah, I was filling it in.
About?
No, it's fine. Don't worry about it.
Okay. Peru has coffee.
It does. Delicious coffee. It's hot and there's mountains. It's basically the things you need for coffee.
That's Peru. That's coffee.
But yeah, today we're going to go to another site in Peru, which is called Marcahuasi. Marcahuasi, one of the most fun words I've been able to say this week.
Marcahuasi.
So that's what we're going to talk about. Marcahuasi is apparently a wild place where people go for spiritual healing. There's a lot of UFO sightings, and apparently it's full of stone statues of people of different races that they would not have been able to see because of, the Columbian Exchange not happening yet, and animals that don't belong on the continent, and just geoglyphs that people could not have possibly anticipated. So, is this the work of unidentified flying objects? Is this the work of is this one of those unasteroided Graham Hancock civilizations that we hear so much about?
His last piece of homework that got away, and it's here for us. So the idea is that there are these like sculptures or something that look like people that they couldn't have seen, and so it must be aliens. Is that right?
Basically.
Or is it that did they have technology to go fly around the world and see all these people and carve statues about them?
Well, let's get started and I'll tell you.
All right, let's dive in.
Yeah. So Marcahuasi is a site that was primarily outlined by two people, Daniel Russo and George Hunt Williamson. And they really do represent the two genders of the kinds of people we cover in this situation. So let's start with Daniel Russo first. So he is the first person to have done an investigation of the site in the early 1950s. He went in 1952 and came back with the claim that these stone formations are the result of are all sculptures. They're all handmade.
Okay.
And are the result of a civilization that he calls the Masma, who were once a globe-spanning super civilization.
I see.
Which he coincidentally had been spending his entire career trying to prove the existence of.
And was he successful?
He's working on it.
He's
probably dead by now, but he's probably working on it.
Hey, no rest for the wicked, I guess. His claim then is my second idea, right? Where he thought that they were people who had advanced technology and they could travel the world or did travel the world. And
this is like your Ancient Aliens, Vimanas and Nazca lines being like runway strips and like that kind of thing. Like, this is that there was a hyper powerful global civilization in the past that has been wiped out because of asteroids or whatever,
or just cause.
Yeah. And just coincidentally, all of their evidence of hyper civilization just conveniently disappeared.
We have runway strips with the Nazca lines, but we have no airports or airplanes. But it's got to be an airport. If you think about it, it's got to be advanced flying ships.
What else could be a straight line?
Nothing that I can think of.
The other claim is by a guy named George Williamson, who decided that the Marcahuasi structures are not a sign of an ancient civilization, but are created by extraterrestrials and giants from previous, giants from the past. And
so those are two different things. There are aliens and also giants.
Well, if you've done your Ancient Aliens homework, you'll know that the people who claim that they're giants, that the giants are human-alien hybrids.
Oh, that's right. We've done an episode about that before.
Yeah, our episode with Trey the Explainer.
Yes. So these are aliens and half aliens who made these. They made them?
Yeah.
Okay.
So there you go. That's the two genders of ancient aliens. It's either aliens did it or a hyper advanced civilization in the deep past that conveniently there's no evidence of did it.
And then you sort of get like the overlap of the Venn diagram where how did the ancient people get that advanced technology to travel the globe? Aliens gave it to them. Thank you for asking.
Yeah. Clever those aliens. So, so that's the two main things. So their claim is that these different stone figures depict people or animals from different races and different types of species that are from completely different continents. Some of the times they point out that they have some clever design where they can only be seen from particular angles or under certain lighting conditions.
All right.
And go back into indigenous Andean beliefs that there were people called the Wakas who could take physical form of rocks. So basically like rock people.
Oh.
And that some of these Marcahuasi statues are like simulacra of that legend.
Cool. I mean, how much of that is that true? Or is that just
I don't
speculating?
Unfortunately, there's not a ton in English about indigenous Andean beliefs, but it's a thing that could be true. Like the idea of stone people would not surprise me.
Yeah.
And that there's also evidence of building complexes and structures on the plateau. But one of the funniest ones is that when I did find, there was like this YouTube video called Mystery Archives, which is such a wild ride of a YouTube channel.
That's a good name. That sounds like the name of a show that they would have on History Channel.
And it watches like one too. One of the claims that they said is that one of the statues looks like a Stegosaurus, which adds another level. There's dinosaurs, despite the fact that the Stegosaurus has been dead since the end of the Jurassic period.
Which is that's a different time in history then.
It's true, yeah. It's not even like Cretaceous. Like if it was a T-Rex or like one of those other dinosaurs that were some of the last to go out, that's one thing. You're still losing like 60 some million years of time, but you're talking about the Jurassic, which is even before that.
It's wild. We have to talk about dinosaurs sometime on this show, right? Because one of the episodes does talk about, at least one of the episodes of Ancient Aliens does talk about how the dinosaurs were wiped out by aliens. And so we need to address that at some point.
You'll get to that. We'll definitely have to do an episode on that, because also I know that there's a whole thing with there are fundamentalist Christians who go on hiking expeditions into the like uncharted parts of the world to find hidden dinosaurs. And there's a whole thing about like among young Earth creationists of dinosaurs being cryptids.
Okay, see, I thought that the belief was that God put dinosaur bones on the planet to test our faith.
Okay, well that's one of the two genders of young Earth creationism. There's the one that they're tests of our faith, but two is that the dinosaurs were wiped out in Noah's flood, and that before then in the Garden of Eden there were dinosaurs. And so if you go to like the Creation Museum in America somewhere, you can actually see like statues or like animatronic Adams and Eves next to like velociraptors that don't eat meat, because in the Garden of Eden nothing ate meat, I guess.
Nothing ate meat.
So
wait, wasn't there there was a snake there though?
Yeah,
quite famously. Oh, well, we can't get into it.
That's a whole different episode.
It's a whole thing.
So since these two claims about the site came out, starting in the 1950s, it's become a popular site for mystics and New Age enthusiasts. Because, of course, every part of Peruvian indigenous culture, it seems, has to become part of New Age mystical stuff.
Fantastic. We love that.
And to this date, many visitors who go there claim that they've seen spiritual or supernatural events. They claim they've had out-of-body experiences, or they've seen ghosts or UFOs. Some say they heard a humming sound or got headaches.
But then they turned around and it was just their friend humming really loudly.
For real. One of them claims that these headaches and things correspond to an injury found on a mummy that was excavated there in the past.
A mummy, you say?
Yeah.
Was it like a sexy mummy, like from the Mummy franchise?
You can take a look. I know that Peruvian mummies do have quite a cool look to them.
Okay. Let me look. Does this mummy have a name, or do I just search Peruvian mummy?
Just look up Peruvian mummies. They're pretty intense.
Google images. Oh, okay.
So the thing is, so the thing about
these is that they're terrifying.
Yeah. Parts of Peru anyway, are very dry. That is one of the big things about them, because Peru is both very mountainous, where mountain air known for being very dry, and two, also has parts of the Atacama Desert, which is like the driest desert on the planet. So
just to paint you listeners a word picture of what I googled, they look, if you've ever played The Legend of Zelda: Ocarina of Time, they look like those slow walking creepy zombie creatures that latch onto you sometimes. Is that unfair to say?
I've never played Ocarina of Time, so I don't know.
All right. I don't even know what they're called. I just always called them zombies.
Either way, they're terrifying, but they are a cool part of Andean culture in their long history, is that they made mummies.
Oh, they're called re-deads, apparently.
Re-deads?
Re-deads.
Re-dead redemptions. Okay.
No, they're cool, though. They're just, look out.
According to one very 1995 looking website that was apparently published in 2005, Marcahuasi is an energy-filled sacred place that induces and enhances physical, paranormal, mind-altering, preternatural, and consciousness-bending experiences.
Oh, you hit all the buzzwords in there.
Yeah. It's a laboratory for heightened sensory perception and perfect for shamanistic gatherings and ritual invocations.
That SEO just keeps going.
Yeah, it's a special, mystical, spiritual, and mind-altering place that raises many issues concerning lost civilizations, past history of humanity, varying states of consciousness, and the nature of reality. And apparently have healing powers too, and is a spot for UFOs. It's everything. It has every paranormal thing you could want. What is that, Marcahuasi? Yes, everything.
It sure is there. Whatever you're looking for, we got it. We got it here, folks.
So that is Marcahuasi. Now, as you scroll down in the notes, you will see one of the drop-dead, completely non-explainable human face statues.
Okay,
so
I'm looking at this, and if I can paint you all a word picture,
imagine a rock.
Imagine a rock.
Period.
And that's the end of that. There does on the very sort of right side of it, it does look like a face profile, which I guess sort of goes into what they were saying about like you can only view it from certain angles. But we've talked about this before, haven't we? There was an underground pyramid where it's like it looks like a pyramid from one angle, and then from another angle it just looks like a hill.
Yeah. Also, a lot of that stuff that I heard, like it was like you can see it from certain lights and certain angles, makes me think that was raised when they took somebody there and they're like, that looks nothing like a face. And they're like, yeah, but if you looked at it from like this angle and the sun was just like this, then it looks like a face.
And it was during this time of year where the sun and the shadows would hit it this specific way. Yeah, it looks more like a snake than a human head to me, if anything. But I know I'm just like projecting and I'm trying to see something in this. It just sort of looks like a big rock.
Yeah, it's so like the fact is that it's hyped up so much and it's become such like a huge case. Why don't like we just go on a little Google image journey of Marcahuasi stone figures? Because there's not a ton of them, but that's the biggest one. But like every single one I find, like they're like, this is a camel and it's like some rocks. And then like this is a stegosaurus and it's like, that's some rocks. It's like,
I see.
It's fairly unconvincing, to be quite honest, which is wild because it has such a huge myth about it. And it is like a driving force of like tourism.
Yes.
So it's wild that like something so wholly unconvincing is such a big deal.
I'm seeing a lot of this same rock from the exact same one angle, which makes me feel like there's no other angle that they could have shot it on to make it look like something.
There you go. Now you got your skeptic sense tingling.
I'm getting there. There is one, I think, that looks sort of like a human skull. Or actually, it looks like Darth Vader. If I'm being honest, it looks like Darth Vader's helmet.
Darth Vader went back in time.
Darth Vader, hey, he didn't have to go back in time. Star Wars happened a long time ago.
That's true. That's true.
And he is technically an alien, if you think about it. So
there's also some claims that like some of these statues are the Sphinx. They look like a Sphinx. Or they look like Tahueret, the hippo pregnancy goddess of ancient Egypt. And it's like but like anytime I see it, like the mystery archive of video is like, and here is a depiction of the hippo pregnancy goddess in Egypt, and it just looks like a rock face. And I'm like
yeah,
okay.
I feel like I'm missing something.
Yeah,
here.
It's wild. So let me tell you about Marcahuasi. Marcahuasi is a plateau in the Andes Mountains. It's just a bit east of Lima in Peru.
Mm-hmm.
It's at a dizzying height of 12,500 feet above sea level, or 3,800 meters, and is about 4 square kilometers in size, or 1.5 square miles. It's known for having a lot of these interesting granite rock formations that might look like human faces or animals, or in previous times, people have seen religious symbols or things like that.
Famous Sith Lords. Yeah.
Darth Vader. The plateau has its origins in likely volcanic activity. It's lava stone for a lot of places. And then over apparently like 10,000 some years, wind erosion has weathered away these stones into the weird shapes that there are. So basically, the reason why there's all these strange rock things that look like statues that just like stick out of the ground is because of wind erosion over time.
Gotcha.
And at the site, there are also some small pre-Columbian structures. There are some tombs of some old people that are there, but they, when studied, seem to have been robbed and vandalized sometime in the past.
Oh no, that hardly ever happens.
So much like that's the reason why when King Tutankhamun was discovered in Egypt, it was such a big deal because he wasn't like that big a deal as like a pharaoh, but his tomb was one of the few tombs that had not been raided basically already.
Did you see, we got an email from a fan who sent us a Tutankhamun joke. Did you see that?
No.
Now feels like a good time to talk about it, to bring it up. I just want to pull up the fan's name if I can. I'm going to find it. You keep doing your thing. I'll pretend I'm paying attention.
Okay. So there are actually a lot of theories about the origin of the rock formations that are a lot of bunk, but most archaeologists seem pretty convinced that they're not man-made structures and that they are natural rock formations, which is what they most look like. There's no evidence of there being the sort of large settlement in the region that would be required to do such huge, sculpting projects. And there's no inscriptions from the plateau or any other petroglyphs that really symbolize. Like the thing is that there's no context. There's just these stone statues. There's no other bits that would show things like evidence of construction, evidence of tool use, evidence of people living there while building all of these things. Nothing like that.
Nothing. I did find the email. This is from David. Thank you, David. And the email subject line says, "What did Akhenaten say when he and his son farted at the same time? He turned to his son and said, 'We Tutankhamun.'"
Ooh.
Well
done.
Thank you, David.
Yeah.
Send us your worst joke.
Send us your worst. Yeah, please.
At props.aliens@gmail.com.
Please, we need it. So the thing though is that Marcahuasi is apparently a really nice site to go to as like a way to get out of Lima if you're like on vacation in Peru and you want to do some stuff in the country. So you can go there. It's now a site for hiking, for camping, horseback riding, and even mountain biking, which sounds like all like fun activities to do out there. And apparently,
that does sound fun.
You can even rent donkeys to go riding in the area from the local area of San Pedro de Casta.
All right.
So it does seem like a fun place to go. Maybe not to see vortices or heal your wounds, but if you want to ride some donkeys or if you want to go hiking or camping, it seems like it's a cool place to go. But yeah, all of it is basically, this is just another case of the classic thing looks like a thing that we have covered on this show many, many times already.
Yes.
And the thing is that there are a lot of cases where we have seen stone and rock formations that look like faces or objects. So I found a few things that also look like things that I felt had a stronger case.
Okay, hit me with it.
The first one being an Alberta-based one near Medicine Hat called the Badlands Guardian, which looks like the head of a Native American person wearing a headdress, but also who seems to have earphones in.
Yeah, it's like those old Apple commercials with the white headphones. That dangle down. That's what it looks like. This dude's listening to some tunes.
Yeah. So this was discovered through Google Earth in 2005 by a guy named by a person named Lynn Hickox. And the headphones are actually an oil well that was drilled there in the early 2000s, and that it will probably apparently that will all be gone once the well actually dries up. The head is just a drainage feature, which is the erosion of soft clay-rich soil by the action of wind and water.
So it's totally coincidental.
Yeah, It's completely natural. It's just erosion. Its age is, it's probably only like hundreds of years old, and it got a nickname as the Badlands Guardian. It became like an internet meme in like 2005. It was one of the top Google Earth finds by Time. It was listed as 7th in the top 10 Google Earth finds by Time magazine.
What are the other ones?
Ooh, that's a good question.
I gotta know. I'll look that up later. This is cool. This definitely looks more like a person than the rock at Marcahuasi.
Yeah. The other one, too, that we can talk about is Cydonia. And here we go. Let's get some, what's that band called? What's the band that does the Knights of Cydonia?
You're asking the wrong person.
Muse, maybe? Either way, Cydonia is a region on Mars that some planetologists believe might have been the place where an ocean bed used to be, and that there might have been a coast there. So, interesting place that's studied a lot because Mars might have had liquid oceans there. But what I think most people would know and gives us some Marcahuasi vibes is that in 1976, when the Viking 1 orbiter took pictures of the surface of Mars, they took this interesting photo, which, with the way that the light worked and the resolution of the photo, looked like a face and became the famous face on Mars.
It does look like a face. 100%. Now, we talked about this before, and I mistook this because in a previous episode where we talked about this, I thought you were referencing the smiley face on Mars, which I think is a different thing that is real. Whereas, this is real. It's a real thing. But as you're about to say, it doesn't look like a face all the time.
No, it really was an optical illusion caused by the fact that the Viking 1 orbiter took very low resolution pictures. And once we got pictures from the Global Surveyor or the Reconnaissance Orbiter or the Mars Express probe, we saw some more high definition photos that showed that it really was just a trick of light mixed with low resolution. But that didn't stop a lot of UFO cranks, including, as we talked about Graham Hancock a few weeks back, from writing that this is signs that there was a civilization on the face of Mars that might have escaped to Earth when whatever cataclysm that destroyed Mars's biosphere took place.
And they built a singular face and nothing else.
Yeah, well, there's some claims that they also built pyramids because there's some mountains on Mars.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
That could never naturally happen.
Yeah. The face on Mars, though, is a big one to talk about because a lot of skeptic groups use it as an example of credulity, including Carl Sagan, who talked about a lot of speculation around it in his book, The Demon Haunted World. Carl Sagan might be like the godfather of this podcast.
Yes.
The Demon Haunted World is basically a book about pseudoscience and criticizing pseudoscience, but written from like the very compassionate and kind words of Carl Sagan himself.
Yeah.
But the face on Mars was often a talking point for skeptics to talk about how things could look like things but not actually be that. And then do none of them talk about the smiley face on Mars? Not really, not that I've heard of anyway.
Okay. That's a different thing. It's weird that there's two of them. Maybe they're onto something, Tristan. Maybe there's faces everywhere on Mars.
When I think about the smiley face on Mars, I just think of Watchmen.
Yes. And Watchmen, but Watchmen did it because it was real.
Okay.
It is real. It's called Gale. It's just a crater that's on Mars that looks like a smiley face. From lots of different photos. It's not necessarily like this one where with different lighting, it doesn't look the same. It just sort of always looks like a smiley face. And it's cute and I like it.
Well, here's the thing about the face on Mars that we're talking about here is that the reason why this is not going to come up on Ancient Aliens is because it got debunked before Ancient Aliens started airing. But I will tell you, as somebody who was plugged into the exact same people who then started talking, like basically the people who are the source base for Ancient Aliens, they were talking about this all the time right up until it got debunked. And that kind of shows exactly where the sort of the sort of problem lies in a lot of the claims here.
100%.
The next piece we got into is one that's called The Old Man of Hoy, which is a 449-foot sea stack in Hoy, which is part of the Orkney Islands, which is a sort of collection, an archipelago of islands north of Scotland.
What is a sea stack?
It is a stack. It is about where it's a thing of stones where erosion, like sea erosion, has basically created like a pillar of rock.
Okay, yeah. And so people think this is a man-made thing, a human-made thing?
No, people, like, this is another case of a thing that looks like a person, but we know that it's not because erosion does that.
It just does it.
Yeah, and so the Old Man of Hoy is, it's an old sandstone. It's made of old sandstone. It's one of the tallest thing of its kind in the UK. A lot of climbers start climbing it, starting in 1966. It's probably less than 250 years old, and it might be in danger of collapsing one day because it's very unstable.
I was going to say, why would you climb it? It's going to fall over.
Yeah. Climbing, it's actually a common activity I found. Apparently, like, rock climbers go to it regularly as like it's a big site for rock climbers. There's like 7 different routes of it.
Rock. Yeah.
So rock climbers seem to really like it.
Tristan, there's only one thing that rock climbers like, and it is rocks. Climbing those rocks. Yeah. That's all they like. So if you show them a big, tall rock, they're gonna want to climb it.
Yeah, it's such a popular rock for rock climbers that on the top of it, buried under a cairn of stones, is a log book. So it's like a geocache where you can climb to the top and write your name in to say that you did the climb.
Oh, cool. I mean, still sounds dangerous. I wouldn't do it.
Yeah, not my favorite activity. It's also used for the equally safe highline walking or base jumping. So one of the common stories I always see is that somebody like put a line between the Hoy man, the Old Man of Hoy, and the mainland there, and then tightrope walks across it.
Oh, I see. Yeah, there's a big, enormous gap between this old man, and it's supposed to look like an old man. I guess it sort of does from a specific angle. Yeah, why not?
It also is a site for base jumping, which is that extremely normal thing where people turn themselves into flying squirrels.
They're gonna base jump off of Robert De Niro. That's what this old man looks like to me.
The next one on our tour is actually one that I'm trying to remember. I think I've actually seen in person, which is interesting because it no longer exists.
Oh, because of you or different reasons?
Natural reasons.
Okay.
Reasons that are kind of why it exists in the first place. So when I say the Old Man in the Mountain, everyone listening to this podcast who's from New Hampshire automatically knows what I'm talking about because it is one of the iconic New Hampshire things to the point where I think it's on license plates at some point in some places.
Why are they all old men? Well, there's 2 of them. I guess no one said the face on Mars was an old man.
I guess a face made of craggy rock is always going to resemble an old person.
Looks wrinkly. Yeah.
So the Old Man of the Mountain's a rock formation near Cannon Mountain in Franconia, New Hampshire, and it used to look like a human face. It was 370 meters or 1,200 feet above Profile Lake, and it was about 12 meters or 40 feet tall.
Was that on purpose? Profile Lake?
Maybe. It could be that.
This rock looks like a person's profile, like an old man's profile.
Could be.
That's funny.
The first written mention of it comes from 1805, and it became a landmark and has since turned into a cultural icon of New Hampshire until May 3rd of 2003, where it collapsed.
Oh, no.
And people were apparently really sad about that, to the point where they were actually considering replacing it with a replica, but they eventually just replaced it with like a sort of memorial site. But apparently it collapsed due to natural erosion related things, the kind of erosion that made it in the first place.
Mm-hmm.
There's even some stories of it within Abenaki legends of the local indigenous people. And apparently the Old Man of the Mountain was also a symbol to the Mohawk people who lived in the region. So there's even indigenous stories about this formation.
This old man, this old feller.
Yeah, it was probably formed something like 12,000 years ago and then collapsed in 2003. And I'm like, oh, I actually got to see it.
Brag about it. I'll never get to see it.
Well, there's a picture. At least there's that.
Oh, there is a picture.
But yeah, now there is but there was a lot of different attempts to make a replica of it. Some included a walk-in profile that would be made of like plexiglass or even making a copper replica. But instead they decided in September of 2020 to make a memorial to the Old Man in the Mountain. And it's still to this day considered like one of the iconic things about New Hampshire, to the point where it's been on license plates and other such things.
Now the photo that you have in Notion is pretty low res. So I'm with the power of AI, I am going to enhance enhance this resolution to see what it may have looked like if someone took this photo on a modern day smartphone. Oh yeah, it just sort of looks like a rock, huh? Like a face rock. That's neat.
So cool. What's going on with all these things? Like, why do we keep finding faces in rocks?
I don't know. You didn't even mention the most famous one in the States. There's another one called The Old Man in the Chair. It looks just like Abraham Lincoln.
Is that the one that's in downtown Washington, D.C.?
You've heard of it. Yeah, absolutely.
There's also this one where there's this one that looks like 4 presidents somewhere in Wyoming.
Yeah, that one is weird. The scientists are still baffled by that one. How did that naturally form?
Wait, I just got to make sure that it's... I've been to Mount Rushmore like twice, and I don't remember if it's... I'm pretty sure it's in...
It's in North Dakota.
North Dakota. Okay, sorry. For some reason, I thought Wyoming.
Oh, you said Wyoming?
There's something else in Wyoming that is there. Is that where Devil's Tower is?
Boy, I couldn't tell you.
Yes, I've been to Devil's Tower also twice, and it's in Wyoming. And every time I've gone to Devil's Tower, I think I also did Mount Rushmore because they're kind of in the same area. So
I'm not getting a good AI generated view of this mountain. It'll never work for me.
It's lost to time. So the likely best explanation as to why we keep seeing these things is because of a phenomenon that happens in our brains, which is called pareidolia.
Yay, we're back. We've talked about this before a little bit.
Yeah. So pareidolia is this weird tendency humans have to see patterns in things that aren't really there. Typically seeing visual things like images and things. The most common one you'd probably think of is seeing animals in cloud formations and stuff like that, or constellations, seeing patterns in those kinds of things. It also fills in things like, you probably remember during like the Satanic Panic, the hidden messages in backwards recorded music, or hearing like what are called EVPs in the ghost spheres, which is where they record static, or they record a quiet room, then they crank the gain up, and then they try to hear voices in the static.
They'll just hear like a, and I'll be like, did you hear it?
It said, my bones are buried under the well.
Oh, I thought it said, can we order Postmates? I'm hungry.
You don't have Postmates here, I don't think.
I don't know why I said Postmates. I haven't used Postmates since like 2016. I don't know why that came to mind.
I don't know. So pareidolia shows up around. It comes from the term para, which means instead of, and eidolon, which means image or form. Pareidolia is frequent amongst people who have, everybody experiences it, but it happens especially frequently with people who have Parkinson's disease or Lewy body dementia.
Oh, interesting.
And it also very often is invoked by face-like objects. And it seems to be baked into our biology because we've done studies with babies that start to show that they recognize face-like things that aren't faces early on. So it's definitely part in like the way that we work because we're social animals. And one of the things we need as social animals is to be able to identify who a person is by seeing their face and get their sort of state of mind, like whether or not like we need to find out who this person is, recognize them from a crowd, and also gauge people's emotional states with just our eyes. And so we're very clued into doing that. Yeah,
I'm sure it's also I could be wrong, but it seems like it's also useful as like a survival thing for like, because even though animals don't have necessarily human faces, like just being able to identify, here's eyes, nose, and mouth. This is a living thing that could harm me. If it's not human, could be a thing as well.
And what these rock formations that appear to have faces or shapes in them they're called mimoliths.
Mimoliths. Oh, that's fun. That's a new term for me.
Yeah, they're rock formations that have recognizable forms, usually done through formation, weathering, or erosion, because then they get interesting shapes. Oftentimes, things that are called chert nodules or concretions or pebbles may be mistakenly identified as skeletons or other antiquities of organic origin by amateur enthusiasts.
So people are finding rocks and being like, I bet someone was buried here.
This looks like a bone or a skull or something like that.
Get Bones on the phone from that show Bones. Give him a bone call.
You're calling me on the bone line.
Something about bones?
Oh my goodness. The There's also famous cases of pareidolia happening like in 1877 when some of the early telescope observations of Mars saw what they saw as straight lines and interpreted that as canals. And that sort of began the idea that Mars was inhabited and had people on it.
Boy, I feel like we've seen this before where people find lines and they're like, I don't know, must be something. Something's up.
Some famous Renaissance painters actually used pareidolia in their paintings to have images in the images, basically.
Yeah.
And there are some cases, like in Turkey from the 13th century, some actual structures that show, that have like carvings that if you use shadows can look like human faces.
Oh, that's cool too. A little, what is there a term for that? Like shadowology? I don't know.
Who knows? Somebody probably knows. And for all of you Christian heads out there, you might also remember that there are cases of pareidolia happening where people see religious figures in interesting phenomenon like toast.
That is true.
Jesus's face has shown up in a lot of things that only vaguely look like faces, because of the phenomenon of pareidolia. And apparently, doctors will apparently use pareidolia and these sort of patterns to help people recognize anatomy when they're teaching people how to study radiology images. And we can also find it happens in computer vision. So the way that we're designing facial recognition and stuff like that is having a sort of pareidolia phenomenon.
Training computers to recognize faces.
Yeah.
That seems not problematic.
And oftentimes pareidolia shows up in old photography or all sorts of stuff that really is linked to ghost sightings, to like, you know, all sorts of like cryptid sightings. All of those can probably trace their origins to pareidolia and like, you know, early photography and stuff like that.
Do you know the very first thing that came to my mind when you started talking about that? Do you know what it is?
No.
Do you have an idea?
You seem excited, so let's go with it.
The grassy knoll.
Oh, yeah. Oh boy. Yeah, I'm making a video debunking the JFK conspiracy theories in November, and I am looking forward to my emails after that one. Another thing that this also contributes to this is something called apophenia, which is the tendency to make meaningful connections out of unrelated things. Again,
video essays.
Basically, pareidolia is a form of apophenia. The term was coined by Klaus Conrad in a 1958 book about the beginning of schizophrenia, because very often psychiatric dysfunctions, especially paranoid schizophrenia, is essentially where this part of your brain goes into overdrive. One symptom of paranoid schizophrenia is your brain goes into overdrive and you start building these connections between things that have no connections. It's why very unfortunate for people who have paranoid schizophrenia. It makes their life very terrifying.
Oh, I'm sure.
It's a typical thing that is at the core of many conspiracy theories, where people try to weave different coincidences together to make a plot. And pareidolia is basically just a type of apophenia, where people see it in images or sounds. That's just random stimuli, like, you know, rocks in Marcahuasi, for example. It's the same kind of brain heuristic that results in gamblers thinking that they've seen patterns in things like slot machines or lotteries, or even like roulette wheels. Yeah.
Look, man, I'm due. You know, I've lost so many times, I'm due.
Exactly.
That's all I'm saying. And I'm so close. And I got 4 in a row. Next one's going to be 5 in a row. I'm just saying. I haven't been I've gambled once, and then I won like $100. And I called it quits. I was like, I'm never gambling again. I'm up. I beat the house. I'm out of here, baby.
Do you want my pro strat? My pro strat. This is my pro Vegas strat. So if you are gambling for long periods of time in Vegas, they will start giving you free drinks. So here's what you do. Go to video poker. I
can do that.
Put in like next to no money and sit there and just keep playing the video poker with the absolute least amount of money that you possibly can. Maybe do one round like every like maybe minute or two. And if you just stay there long enough and look like you're playing, eventually people come by being like, hey, want some free alcohol? And you're like, yeah, I do. And then you sit there and drink free alcohol while...
I bet you'll be better at this game if we get you liquored up a little bit.
Exactly. So really, if you go to Vegas and you want to just hang out with your friends and get free alcohol, just sit at the video poker table, play like a round like maybe every minute or so, and drinks will start happening.
And then get smashed. Yeah.
Which is the true fun of going to Vegas. Okay. In statistics, apophenia is considered what's called a type 1 error or a false positive. And it's caused because our brains have cognitive processes where we're always trying to find patterns in seemingly random data. It's basically how we think and how we develop theories. The problem is that we are so good at it that we oftentimes will attribute it to nothing. And it's not a flaw in our human condition, our human cognition, but it's something that is born out of need. Basically, we are pattern recognizing creatures, and apophenia is sort of a interesting byproduct of it. And so, really, as long as we are going to be humans, we are always going to be seeing people's faces in toast, or we're going to be seeing faces on mountains, or in this case, we're going to be seeing a camel on a wind-swept rock statue.
Yeah. And I made a joke about like video essays being apophenia of just like connecting random things together. And finding connections between unrelated things. But like, also like that is sort of what art is in a weird way. And you mentioned, Renaissance painters using pareidolia in their artworks and things. And like, that feels like what art is to me. It's taking these things and connecting them together in new and interesting ways. Especially, I made a whole video a couple years ago about collage art in comic books, and that is like literally what collage art is taking all these different materials and media and putting them together in a new way, even though they're disjointed, and sort of making art out of it. And so, like, yeah, even though I'm right there with you, I don't think it's a flaw in human cognitive behavior. It's a part of what makes humans cool, even if sometimes we look at a rock and say it must be that aliens made it, or people were inspired by aliens, or a highly advanced society made it because they could travel the globe, or whatever. Even though we come to what some would consider false conclusions, it's still sort of a cool thing about our brains that we're able to do that sort of stuff.
It's kind of endearing about the species that we see faces on Mars, or animals in clouds, or whatnot. So I wouldn't take it away. It also means that as long as we're going to be humans, we're probably going to be seeing it. But where you can see a lot of the rock formations that we talked about today?
I will be sure to actually tweet them out this time, I promise. And that Twitter account is probsnotaliens. On Twitter. Go check it out. I've been trying to put some artwork in the MP3 file, but I don't think our podcast upload client allows for that sort of thing. So even though it's baked into the MP3 file, I don't think it's actually sending out to anybody that I'm putting chapters and artwork and stuff. I've been trying, everyone. I don't know what the deal is. But we'll tweet out some stuff. I promise. There's some cool stuff. I right-click saved as to everything. And, if I can go ahead, I'm just going to promote myself right now and say, I mentioned a video about collage art and comic books. I made that a couple years ago. It's about Jack Kirby, the comic book artist's collage art that he did for a brief period of time in his career. And I think it's one of the coolest videos I've made. And I make my own collage in it that I think is really good. And it's hanging up behind me. I don't even know if Tristan can see it. It's this little guy right here. That's my collage.
It's very little.
It's very little, but it's fun and I like it. Go check out that video. It's very fun. But hey, it's on my YouTube channel, Nerdsync. I don't even think I said it. Nerdsync. But Tristan, what you got cooking up over at your YouTube channel?
I've got a YouTube channel called Step Back where I talk about how the past is important for understanding the present. And I got a whole whopper on that one because right now the latest video is on basically marking the 20th anniversary of the beginning of the Iraq War and features an interview with actual Noam Chomsky.
The real man.
The real person, Noam Chomsky. And so with that as a real thing that actually happened to me, I think it's a cool.
Yeah.
Stepbackhistory.com.
Go check it out, everyone. We have links to that in the description to where you can find Tristan and myself. You can also listen to this podcast on Nebula a week early. That's nebula.tv/probably-not-aliens. So if you're listening right now, not on Nebula, and you're thinking, boy, I could use another episode of this podcast, guess what? There's already another one up for you to listen to right now.
Yep.
Go check it out. And obviously, it helps the show out too. It helps us out, helps the show continue, as well as writing reviews and leaving reviews. I got to start pulling more reviews down to thank people specifically and see what everyone's saying. But it's a lot of fun getting those emails every time someone someone writes a review. I really love it. And tell your friends about it. Tell your friends about the show. Dang it. Yeah. Tristan, what's the website you can send people to to tell their friends about the show?
You can go to probsnotaliens.com.
That's the website. It's got links to, I say everything. I got to update it. It's got links to most things related to this show. So go check it out. I guess that's it. Until next time, my name is Scott Nicewander.
I'm Tristan Johnson, and the truth is out there. Probably.
What was that?
That's pareidolia, probably.
Oh.
So people will be listening to it with the gain really high and hearing, my bones are buried. You must burn them.
Can we get pizza after this? I haven't eaten in ages.
There's two ghosts. One wants to avenge or wants to have their soul buried, and the other one just wants
one
food.
Of them just is so hungry.
Unfinished business as he died with a really bad case of the munchies.
Yeah.
He just wants one legendary snack before they can go to the beyond.
One last slice, bud. One last slice.